1995. A 13-year-old amateur prospect in Youngstown, Ohio, dreams of boxing glory. Just as a 30-year-old Philadelphia ex-con begins a decade-long stretch of domination as middleweight champion.
The ultimate professional, the executioner at work.
Fast forward more than a decade, the teenage amateur has grown into a rising middleweight contender and is hammering his way to the top of the division.
Kelly Pavlik has a huge knockout victory.
Meanwhile, the longtime middleweight king, having lost his championship, moves up to 175 pounds, and at age 41, furthers his legacy with an upset win at light heavyweight.
What a performance by Hopkins.
Then, in a breathtaking comeback performance,
And down, Pavlik goes down.
the prospect earns the middleweight crown himself.
Down goes Pavlik. There's a brand new middleweight champion. He's from Youngstown, Ohio.
And now, 2008. The kid from Youngstown is 26, a champion, and one of boxing's rising stars, while the veteran warrior from Philly is 43 and may finally be showing his age.
Hopkins holding on as the seconds tick away.
Tonight, two generations meet in the ring as Kelly Pavlik looks to add a legend to his list of victims.
We don't want a close fight with Hopkins. I mean, go in there and beat him. We're going to dominate the fight.
While defiant as ever, Bernard Hopkins tries to once more turn back the clock.
We're going to see whether Kelly Pavlik can handle that initial shock after discovering he's been lied to. This guy is not open.
Opposites collide. Pavlik Hopkins is next. It's finally time for our main event. Kelly Pavlik versus Bernard Hopkins. Though both these fighters made their reputations as middleweights, they meet tonight as light heavyweights at an agreed-upon limit of 170 pounds. Conventional wisdom favors Pavlik's youth and punching power, but Bernard Hopkins remains, at 43 years of age, one of the most difficult tactical assignments in the sport. Kelly Pavlik versus Bernard Hopkins is being brought to you by Caesars Atlantic City, Corona Beer, Corona la Cerveza Más Fina, Affliction, and by HBO Pay-Per-View, the best in pay-per-view entertainment, brought to you by HBO. It looks to be a nearly packed house here in Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. It will be interesting to see to which of these two fighters goes the bulk of the allegiance in the crowd. Larry Merchant, a lot of expectations in this fight surrounding young Kelly Pavlik as he continues the glory of his early career surge. Must Pavlik duplicate what Roy Jones did 15 years ago when he was the last man to decisively beat Bernard Hopkins and produce a resounding win over Hopkins in order for a victory to have any meaning for him?
Consider Joe Calzaghe. His fast rising balloon suddenly plunged somewhat after he beat Hopkins. The point of this night for Pavlik, money aside, which is a major aside, is to grow his reputation beside the inside boxing world and Ohio. And that's very hard to do against a wily, cautious veteran like Bernard Hopkins. Hopkins reminds me of a character in the movie The Cooler, whose job it was in a casino to cool off the gamblers with the hot hand. Question tonight, can he himself still get a hot hand?
And indeed, with perhaps an eye toward the kind of impact they want to make publicly. Jack Lowe, Kelly Pavlik's trainer, has trumpeted long and loud the assertion that his fighter, Kelly Pavlik, will become the first man to knock Bernard Hopkins out. And by doing that, Emmanuel Stewart, he sets up the obvious, that now Hopkins, at age 43, can achieve a victory of sorts in public simply by standing up and avoiding a knockout in the fight. So what does Bernard do? Does he take the risk of trying to win against dangerous Kelly Pavlik? Or does he seek simply to avoid the knockout and then claim victory for standing up at the end of the fight?
Well, that's a rough question. I think it'll be after the first or second round. Right now, coming in this fight, according to Bernard, he said he doesn't feel that his legs can carry him through 12 rounds of running and staying out of the way of a fast, aggressive fighter like Kelly Pavlik. So he experienced that when he tried to do it with Joe Calzaghe. For this fight, he said he's going to go back to being a tough, Cajun, Philadelphia-type fighter, punching, moving in, doing a lot of things with short punches. We'll see if that happens. It sounds good, but after about 2 or 3 rounds, I think he'll decide whether he will go for victory that way or maybe the other way, just try to merely gain a victory by saying, I went to 12 rounds.
2 weeks and 3 days before a presidential election in the United States, 2 all-American fighters meet at the summit of the sport. Let's go to Michael Buffer for Free Fight Pageantry.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we would like to honor America with our national anthem. And here to perform the national anthem, a very special guest, a multi-platinum selling recording artist from Bunzi Records in Philadelphia. Please welcome the Grammy winner, Bunny Ziegler.
Was so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag, you know it was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, wave for the land and of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, America, the home of the brave, of the brave. Oh, America, America, we're free.
Bunny Ziegler lets the good times roll. Tail of the tape for Kelly Pavlik and Bernard Hopkins. And very rarely in the history of the sport has a fighter as advanced in age as Hopkins beaten a star as young as Pavlik. 17 years difference in age. Pavlik is also taller than Bernard Hopkins, rare in Hopkins' career, and has an arm length advantage of 1.5 inches measured from the armpit to the end of the fist. The weight of 169 pounds at the weigh-in, the highest in Pavlik's career. Remember, he is the 160-pound champion of the world, and Hopkins weighed 170 tonight. They are 6 pounds apart, with Hopkins the heavier man. Rules of the bout with Harold Letterman.
The Kelly Pavlik Bernard Hopkins fight is scheduled for 12 rounds using the unified rules of the Association of Boxing Commissions. There is no 3 knockdown rule. Only the referee can stop the fight. In case it is caused by an accidental headbutt, we go to the scorecards if the 4 rounds have been completed, and you cannot be saved by the bell in any round, including the 12th and final round.
Coming to the ring at this time, the fighting blue-collar pride of Youngstown, Ohio, Kelly the Gold Pavlik.
And the crowd response tells you, as was the case against Jermaine Taylor in September of 2007, as was the case against Gary Lockett earlier this year, Atlantic City is once again Youngstown East.
But you know, it's a little different this time. For one of the few times, Bernard Hopkins is fighting really actually in his hometown. That's compared to when Kelly Pavlik fought Jermaine Taylor here. So you're going to see him sharing a lot of the crowd's love tonight with Bernard Hopkins. It's going to be a little different than it was before. Even though here's a big crowd here, there's a lot of Bernard Hopkins people coming from Philadelphia.
In a moment, we'll see. A list of some of the significant wins along the way for Pavlik. His victory over Edison Miranda legitimized him as a contender. His victories over Jermaine Taylor made him a star. Emmanuel Stewart, tell us about Kelly Pavlik's keys to victory.
Kelly Pavlik's keys to victory is to apply continuous, relentless pressure, trying to set a pace that would be a little too much strenuous for Bernard, but all the time watching to make sure he's never off balance and out of position, because Bernard can be a tremendous sneaky counterpuncher, and you have to always be watching out for his counterpunches, particularly the short right hand.
On the other hand, what must Bernard Hopkins do to beat Pavlik?
Bernard has to actually not try to get into a pace where he's trying to fight too fast, much the way that Margarito got Cotto to do, which was too much pressure. He has to slow down, keep the tempo where he wants it, and when he does land punches, he must land with a little power to make Kelly slow down his tempo a little bit and to show a little bit of a little movements, a little feints, a little tricks here and there, a little sidestepping, and not fight in a direct line.
Now coming to the ring, the X Factor, the fighting pride of Philly Pinard, the executioner, Hopkins.
Underneath the mask, Bernard Hopkins still looks like the lean and mean and hungry prize fighter he's always been. But what is underneath all of that? He did more cash talking than trash talking before this fight, talking about the money he can still make in the game. And you have to wonder if it's because somehow he's lost his fear, he's too satisfied with what he has, and whether he will be willing to put it all out there one more time at 43.
Well, tonight he's fighting a fighter that's not going to permit him to get away with a lot of things that some of the other fighters have did, because Kelly's going to be consistently on him applying pressure and punching power.
Hopkins says he is fighting, in effect, for back pay, but he's already rich. Kelly Pavlik is fighting for glory and greater reputation. Is money enough of a motivation to match up with the drive for pride that has brought Pavlik to the top? The wins over Tarver and Wright both came after Hopkins had announced his retirement from the sport, as did the loss to Calzaghe.
But none of those guys possess the punching power that Kelly Pavlik has. It's a little different.
Let's go to ring announcer Michael Buffer now for the official introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, by way of Caesars Atlantic City, Bob Arams, Top Rank Incorporated, and Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions are proud to present the main event of the evening. Sponsored by Corona Extra and Affliction Clothing. This is it, 12 rounds of boxing in the light heavyweight division. Sanctioned by the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board, Chairman Tony Orlando, Acting Commissioner Sylvester Kyler. At ringside, the 3 judges scoring this contest, should it go the distance, will be Barbara Perez, Alan Rubenstein, and Steve Weisfeld. And inside the ring, your referee in charge of the action at the bell, Benji Estevez. And now, for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Fighting out of the blue corner, wearing silver, official weight 170 pounds. Professional record 48 victories, including 32 knockouts, 5 defeats, and 1 bout even. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and this future Hall of Famer is a 2-time world champion. The former light heavyweight world champion and former undisputed middleweight champion of the world, Bernard, the Executioner Hopkins. And fighting out of the red corner, wearing dark navy, official weight 169 pounds. A perfect professional record consisting of 34 bouts, 34 victories, including 30 knockouts. The middleweight title is not on the line tonight. He is the fighting blue collar pride of Youngstown, Ohio, the undefeated middleweight champion of the world, Kelly the Ghost Pavlik.
Kelly, Bernard, you receive your instructions. Again, I will repeat, obey my commands at all times. Keep it nice, clean, and professional. Touch them up. Good luck to both of you.
Hopkins said this will be a fight between 2 construction workers fighting for a sandwich after a hard day's work. Will we get a roast beef sandwich or a bologna sandwich?
You know what, Kelly's whole mindset of his entire camp is about knocking out Bernard. He has never been knocked out. I've never saw him seriously hurt or knocked down even really serious. So he's got to have a little bit better respect for Bernard than what he has coming into this fight.
But Hopkins, late in his career, has become the master of the close decision loss, taking few risks, trying to cut it very fine in every round, leaving plenty of room for more active fighters to shade him on the scorecards. And Pavlik is a very active fighter who says that he will get to Hopkins by making him fight at his pace round after round, and particularly hammering him to the body. So we should watch early to see if Kelly Pavlik can land body shots against Bernard Hopkins. It's easier said than done.
Right at this stage right now, when Kelly comes in, Bernard is moving off to his right, which he said he would do, to neutralize Kelly's right hand, which is his favorite punch that he likes to throw, in addition to being his power punch.
Good left hook to the body by Hopkins, and a good right hand upstairs as Pavlik momentarily dropped his left.
The punch that Hopkins is not concerned about is the left hook from Pavlik. He's concerned about the jab, he's concerned about the right, so he's moving in the direction of the left hook, as you can see.
Just as was the case against Calzaghe in round 1. Hopkins is getting the kind of round he wants and winning the little skirmishes when he chooses to go forward and get together with Pavlik, then moving away and frustrating Pavlik with distance and defense.
Bernard is doing exactly what he wanted to do at this point for the most part, but can he do this for 12 rounds? That's the question. But Kelly is a much better defensive fighter than it looks to be to himself. But he has never been that great with technical type fighters. The second fight with Bernard, up until Bernard totally ran out of gas the last 2 rounds, that was close because Jermaine fought a more technical fight.
So far in round 1, a surprisingly quick Hopkins has at several junctures beaten Pavlik to the punch and has landed more effective blows. Pavlik simply hasn't gotten a chance, and there he gets in his right hand for the first time in the fight. Pavlik keeping his gloves high and blocking Hopkins there.
Let's go.
Pavlik letting Hopkins know he was going to battle him back on the inside.
Good left hook by Hopkins, and again he moves away. Pavlik misses with the right hand, lands a little left hook. Now they mix it up inside.
Now,
if Bernard Hopkins could fight 12 rounds just like this, he'd be very happy.
Well, he seems to be fighting to me with more determination than he did in the fight with Calzaghe. Maybe because he feels this cause is so close to home.
Straight up.
And he's more comfortable.
Patience. Okay, baby, we got 11 more of these fucking things. You want that, huh? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. But you have to double that jab. Okay? You got to start doubling that jab. That'll put us in position. All right, Ben?
Jab your way, no matter what.
Yeah.
When you see that, pop that chain for me, X. Just stay away from them ropes. Keep that walk you're doing. You just stay off them ropes, baby, and everything else is smooth. Nice and relaxed, you in control. And right hand is there, just keep walking. Take your turn, drop that shot. We're gonna look for that right hook up underneath and that right hand over the top. But he giving it to us, he gonna come. See, but you got him confused with that turn you're doing. He can't cross over. Keep setting the pace, baby. Keep walking.
Naseem Richardson's exactly right. Bernard Hopkins confused Kelly Pavlik with his footwork in round 1. Pavlik only got off 26 punches. He's a guy who wants to throw 65 or 70 of them. Hopkins was 8 out of 34 by CompuBox count, 6 of 26 for Pavlik. Pavlik only 2 of 15 jabs. And you heard Jack Lowe saying you've got to double your jabs. Don't throw one at a time. Benji Esteves makes Naseem Richardson take some of the grease off of Bernard Hopkins' face as round 2 begins. And the grease removal shortened our clock. I wonder if it shortened the official clock too. Hopkins poking a right hand over the top. Pavlik doesn't seem to know what to make of him so far.
But Kelly is straight. Both guys are fighting a very good defensive fight too. Kelly is very misleading in his way of his defense. And you know, at this stage, Bernard is fighting a very exceptional fight, much better than people expected. But I would say he might have won the first round even.
That's what he did win the first
Good left hook by Hopkins there.
And so far, it's winning the second round.
Hopkins able to throw 2 punches at a time. Pavlik so far has been pretty much relegated to 1 punch at a time. And again, just as the case in round 1, Hopkins with his better footwork is beating Pavlik to the punch and then moving to spots where Pavlik can't find him.
Pavlik is a straight-ahead fighter, unlike Calzaghe. And so Hopkins can try his movement and try to get good angles, which is what he's doing as he does that.
Bernard very seldom gets hit with a clean punch, but I always felt that 2 times I saw him get hit, he has a good chin if he has to get hit with a punch.
Good jab by Hopkins there. And again, he beats Pavlik to the punch with a combination in the center of the ring. The Pavlik plan is to force Hopkins to fight at a faster pace. But you've got to find him to do that. And Pavlik's opportunities to find Hopkins have been few and far between. And Pavlik's legs are stiffened by a Hopkins uppercut. And Hopkins thinks that he momentarily has him, and he comes forward on the attack.
The left hook, I believe.
Maybe it was a right, but once again, it was up in the high head area, the temple area, I think. Similar where Jermaine hit him at. Which means that might be
under Kelly Pavlik's right eye, which was created by that terrific left-hand punch by Hopkins. The Now Pavlik has a little bit more of a fight, and he comes forward looking for more.
That's what I said.
Hopkins again beats him to the punch.
Bernard is getting a little bit more respect.
If there's one obvious and interesting element so far, it is that Bernard Hopkins has the faster hands. Who would have expected that?
Well,
now they trade, and Pavlik gets in a left hook.
somebody who would have expected it was Freddie Roach, who trained Hopkins for 2 fights and said to me that he thought Pavlik was slower as he moved up from 160 pounds.
Not a good round 2 for Kelly Pavlik, and the crowd warms to the old warrior, Bernard Hopkins.
Listen, Kel, you ain't working. You're not doubling your jab.
Okay.
You ain't working on anything we worked with. You understand? Please, you got to work this kid. You got to double your jab. All he's doing is pot shot you with 1 or 2 shots. Now you got to keep working. Double your damn jab, throw you right
Here you see Bernard land a left hook where he made the body motion as if he was going to throw a jab and landed a great left hook right up in the high area of the head and comes back with a left punch right up between the gloves. That's the punch I think that did damage to Kelly's right eye.
You've heard of happy endings. This has been a happy beginning for Bernard Hopkins.
In a terrific round 2. Hopkins, by CompuBox count, landed 15 out of 45, including 11 out of 23 power shots. Pavlik only 6 out of 34. Bernard Hopkins, to my eyes at least, has clearly won the first 2 rounds. Harold Letterman has given them to Hopkins as well. In the second round, Pavlik seemed momentarily staggered by Hopkins' left hook. And you heard Jack Lowe very urgently between rounds saying to Kelly Pavlik, you've got to double your jab, you've got to be more active, you've got to fight.
Pavlik's jab has been more or less neutralized by Hopkins.
But if you look at Kelly's legs, he's a little clumsy with his legs, and that's what Bernard has taken advantage of by giving him movement, something that most of his other opponents have not given him.
And giving Pavlik the business a little bit there as their right arms were locked. He was whacking Pavlik with his left hand, showing some of those old school skills for which Hopkins has been known for so long.
Well, what he's doing mainly is cutting down on the punch output of Pavlik.
Exactly, and that's correct. And
that's been one of his strongest points, and what Hopkins has always done so well is to cool off an opponent's strongest virtues.
Good left hook up between the gloves by Hopkins. Rips Pavlik with his left hook again. Right hand by Hopkins. Faster hands for Hopkins are bedeviling Kelly Pavlik. Pavlik is going to begin to take more risks, it seems. He's got to in order to get his hands going against Bernard.
Bernard seems to be winning the fight by just picking his shots, doing just what I was predicting on the victory, and landing hard, clean blows with his instead of just landing 1 punch. He's landing a lot of power with those shots and creating footwork, movement.
Now Pavlik begins to block Hopkins left with his right and try to let his left hand go a little bit more. Pavlik said, I'll be okay on the inside. I can muscle him, I'm stronger. And it's very hard to deal with Bernard Hopkins inside where he knows so much and uses it all.
This wasn't altogether unexpected by the Pavlik camp. His trainer, Jack Lowe, said it would be a tough fight for 6 rounds.
This threatens to be the 3rd consecutive round in which Hopkins throws more punches than Pavlik. The formula for beating Hopkins is that you throw more punches. That's how Taylor beat him twice. That's how Calzaghe beat him. If Bernard Hopkins is able to throw more punches than Kelly Pavlik, Pavlik's got a problem.
Well, Pavlik has a problem.
I don't need you going gun-ho. I want you jumping at him, X. I want you taking your time. Doing this thing with no effort, baby. That's the king. All right? Taking that walk, take that walk down the center. Keep working behind that jab. All right, baby, hold on there. Keep that jab, keep that jab and use that feint off him. You see that up shot that's there. He don't know about this, man. He don't know about that level. Turn that thing up, come back over with the hook. But I don't want effort. I don't want you reaching big. You reach big to the body. I want you reaching big to the body. All right? Keep the hands moving. Don't waste energy. This joker think he's going to fight in the second half of the fight. So he pacing himself. He trying not to do a lot now so he can jump big later.
So far, Hopkins is not fighting like the old Hopkins, but he's not fighting like an old Hopkins either.
He's fighting one of the best fight I've saw him fight probably since he fought Felix Trinidad.
Beating Pavlik to the punch. Harold Letterman, how'd you score the first three?
Okay, Jim, 3-0. 30-27, Bernard Hopkins. I think it's amazing. I got to tell you, Jim, listen, I think the key to this fight so far is Bernard Hopkins gets off first every time. He throws the first punch. He's effective with the left hand. He's effective with the right hand. I mean, he's hurt the guy in a couple of times. He staggered him in the second round. I think the key is he's just throwing that first punch, keeping Kelly Pavlik on the defensive. 3-0 based on clean punching, Bernard Hopkins.
When is the last time you saw Bernard Hopkins after the end of 4 rounds be ahead on points? Even in beating
when he beat Antonio Tarver here 2 years ago.
And that was about it. But other than most of his fights, he doesn't fight too much early. De La Hoya was ahead, I think. Most of those guys after the first 4 rounds. This is very unusual for him.
This is very much like the Tarver fight in the sense that he has come in as the underdog and has taken the wind out of a bigger opponent's sails, a taller opponent's sails at least, early in the fight.
Well, right now you see Kelly starting to exert his pressure at his physical size and his youth.
Let's go. Let's go.
Hopkins hitting Pavlik on the hip. Pavlik tried to hit Hopkins back on the hip, away from Benji Esteves as they were wrestling. Pavlik is getting into a little bit more of a rhythm, taking a few more risks, trying to throw more punches.
But he seems to be having an effect on his time, Bernard, now. For the first time I can see him making Bernard fight at his tempo that he wants to fight.
Well, that's the obvious question. We saw how Bernard Hopkins fought the first 3 rounds. Can he do that for 12 at age 43? And now Hopkins moves laterally and once again confuses Pavlik and beats him to the punch and lands a right hand inside. Hopkins is having fun in there. It's no fun for Pavlik so far. Good left hand by Hopkins as he moves away. Pavlik pressuring, hasn't landed anything big.
Blue punch. And watch that shoulder.
What happens in this last half minute could determine
Good
the
left hook
outcome
by
of this
Bernard.
fight. Of this round, I should say.
All right, hold on. Got it. Watch the back of the head now. Come on now.
See, that's what Bernard was doing. He's making him, Kelly shoots his right hand. Bernard is moving to his own right, which is taking the power away from Kelly's right hand.
Well, Bernard Hopkins' big line leading up to the fight is, what is Kelly going to do? And he reacts to the initial shock of discovering that he's not in against an old fighter. The shock is there.
It's starting to come.
How now
Listen,
does
we're finding
Pavlik
our range,
react?
baby. There you go. That was better. That was better. You got to keep the pressure on this kid, and you got to keep making him fight. Much better. Much better. Don't listen to that referee. Say you work. You get on the inside, you work.
Yeah.
That's the way to touch them fucking nuts. Work.
Use your feint and your jab. This joke ain't seen nothing like this, X. Stay at this level, nice and relaxed. Don't expend energy. I want you jumping at him, man. I want you placing them shots, man. Put your hands together, place them shots. You ain't got to leave your feet, man. I don't want you wasting that kind of energy, all right? And I need that stick. Use that feint.
Here you see Bernard doing, which is one of his favorite things, landing those clean little shots as the guy's coming in. Even though his volume is going down, it's just enough for him to steal the rounds, especially in view of the fact that Kelly isn't landing any clean, effective punches.
Through 4 rounds, Kelly Pavlik is averaging 35 punches thrown per round. Bernard Hopkins is averaging 43 punches thrown per round. If that pattern obtains for the rest of the fight, regardless of who lands, Hopkins is likely to win. Pavlik has to outwork Hopkins to get into the plan which he has established as his way for beating him. Lowe liked what he saw a little bit more in round 4 and basically said, keep it up.
Yeah, pressure from a tall fighter is always much more effective than a guy with short guys. We saw with Margarita when he was putting pressure on Cotto. But any tall guys coming in, the pressure from up above you is much more than a short guy where you can tie up and control.
Good left hook again by Hopkins. He's pot-shotting Pavlik, still beating him to the punch, still more accurate with his blows. Pavlik misses again with the right hand. Hasn't landed a big one yet. This is the technical challenge of fighting a brilliant defender like Hopkins. The target is there, and then it's gone. Pavlik hasn't even landed a solid body shot. Good right hand by Hopkins. And a left hook by Bernard as well. Pavlik finds himself on the defensive so often that he's unable to mount the offense he wants. Again, Hopkins rips Pavlik with a right hand as he comes in.
In most of his recent fights, we've seen Hopkins start slowly and try to come on at the end.
But even in the fight with Tarver, he didn't start at this tempo right here. I haven't seen him fight like this in a long time.
How curious is the chemistry of boxing? Watching these two guys now into the 5th round. You would think to yourself, there's no way that Hopkins is the guy who lost twice to Jermaine Taylor, and Pavlik is the guy who beat him twice.
But his style, he's putting boxing skills in here, and this is something that Kelly is not that good with boxers. I've always felt. You have to be right in front of him and basically a shorter guy, and therefore he can exude his strength and power.
The 43-year-old's hand speed is embarrassing the 26-year-old fighter. And the crowd is chanting, B-Hop, B-Hop, B-Hop. Now Pavlik lands the jab and gets in a left hand to the body. Not a big shot, but maybe his most effective body blow yet. Some of the pressure Pavlik wants as Hopkins' legs begin to slow. Another body shot by Pavlik.
But the clean, effective blows are still landed by Bernard, even though he's slowing down.
5 seconds.
But as Hopkins' legs slow, maybe Pavlik will start to get chances to trap it.
You got 5 kilos. He got to play catch up now. Keep doing what you're doing.
You're in control, baby.
Deeper.
You're in control, X Factor.
Deep breath. Nice and
Keep them feints and stay off them ropes for me. All right? Keep them feints and keep making that investment underneath, man. When this joker tilts his shoulder, you can let that right hand go. Because he tilts his left hand because he's reaching to get you to the body now. He's reaching with his left hand.
Okay. You have to double jab it, Kel. He's trying to time that shit, and he's coming right over top. You have to double fucking jab. Double your jab, shoot your right hand. Double your jab, shoot your... Double your jab, right hand, 5. Okay, bud? Better, much better, much better, much better.
Hopkins said that in terms of experience and skill, he was a Harvard graduate and Pavlik a community college guy, and so far, that is the way it's been.
Power shots through round 5, according to CompuBox. Hopkins 52 out of 112, 45%. Pavlik only 22 out of 82. Harold Letterman has seen Bernard Hopkins winning all 5 rounds. Pavlik hammers Hopkins with a right hand to the body and then pushes him back into the ropes. Hopkins' legs are beginning to slow.
You know, even though Kelly is known as a puncher, he's not what we in boxing call a real just one-punch knockout guy. Most of his knockouts came from accumulation of wearing guys down. So if he gets ridiculously behind, he's going to have a real problem with Bernard because Kelly is a good puncher, but not a one-punch puncher.
Well, he's behind. And the guy who's been accumulating punishment here is Hopkins, but there's a good left hook to the body. And now let me say it again. Maybe that was Pavlik's best body shot so far. Hopkins is no longer sprightly enough to get away at will as he was in rounds 1 and 2. And now the slower-footed Pavlik begins to move in.
But his defensive skills, even in close range, is always he's rolling and angling, where it's very difficult for Kelly to land a really solid, clean blow, even though he's slowing down. And you know what we must remember now, Kelly himself has only went over 10 rounds once, and that was in the second Jermaine Taylor fight.
Only gone over 9 rounds.
Yeah, only 9 rounds, so that's the difference right there.
And Hopkins has gone over 9 rounds 24 times, a fact of which Bernard is acutely aware.
And if they both get tired, Bernard may have those natural experience instincts that will carry him through in the later rounds, where Kelly may not have that working for him.
Bernard Hopkins' most uplifting campaign statement in his meeting with us yesterday was, "When I beat Kelly Pavlik, I'll bring hope to the hopeless, and I'll show that injustice can be reversed in America." If there's been injustice, he's reversing it so far.
Hopkins has a grandiose idea of what his place is in America.
We should all be so proud of ourselves. Now the pattern of the Calzaghe fight begins to show up as Hopkins increasingly tries to escape and get away.
But
Pavlik tries to chase him down, but Kelly's not throwing punches the way Calzaghe did.
Calzaghe has a rhythm. He's very nimble, very agile. He's very flexible. Doesn't have the power, but much more difficult to time, much better speed. Well, Kelly is a little, we call gangly. Still, he's a big kid, but he's very gangly with his rhythm and his movement.
And as many solid shots as Hopkins managed to land against Calzaghe, I think he's already landed more against Pavlik than he did in 12 rounds against Joe.
Yep, and I haven't saw him get hit with a solid punch yet. I mean, in Bernard, I haven't saw him get hit with a solid blow yet.
You're good. Listen to me. You have, no, I can't stress it enough, baby. You have to feint the jab, double the jab, and get to him. You have to get to him with that double jab. All he's trying to do is time. He's just trying to counter punch you. You have to double the fucking jab. Come on.
Make your investment, X. This motherfucker's feeling.
He's down 6-0. He got to play catch up.
He's going to try to pick up.
Let him get desperate.
He's going to start running in now, X. You can stick your jab right to the center of the chest and stop it. Because he's going to start running in now. He's desperate now. He's going to start running in. This is the half he think he can pick up on you. Keep your investment. Double that jab up, stick it to the body. Put that razor blade right down the middle of his stomach, all right?
The good news for Pavlik so far is that no matter what the outcome of this fight is, he'll still be the middleweight champion of the world.
Harold Letterman in Hopkins' corner, they think they've won the first 6 rounds. How do you see it?
I think he won the first 6 rounds also. 6-0, 60-54, Bernard Hopkins. You know, Jim, if I'm right, Kelly Pavlik can't win this fight without knocking him down. I mean, you know, if it goes the distance, he's up 6 points already. He has got to start picking up the pace. Hopkins winning the fight because he's landing a harder, cleaner, better, more effective shots. I mean, he's slowed up noticeably rounds 5 and 6, but even still, he's gotten in that real good right hand to win each of those 2 rounds. 6-0, Hopkins.
I have it 5-1. I gave the last round to Pavlik.
Well, by CompuBox numbers, last round was the first in which Pavlik out-threw and outlanded Hopkins. If you wondered why he raised his fist at the end, he's starting to get more of a tempo that he likes. He threw 50 punches in that round and landed 17 to 13 of 41 for Bernard. And Bernard clearly is trying to move away more often, though still standing his ground and hitting Pavlik from time to time, as you saw there.
But one thing, if Kelly gets tired himself, he's got a major problem because he doesn't have the experience to fight off of fatigue, and he's going to be hit much easier. He's coming in, he looks still like he has a lot of energy, but not landing any clean punches.
And what he isn't able to do, which Jack Lowe has pressed him for over and over again, is to double jab and feint and try to throw Hopkins off. That's not working. Increasingly, it looks as though he's just going to have to throw caution to the wind and go at Bernard and bull him to the ropes and try to trap him.
Even though Kelly, he seems like he's getting a little fatigued himself now. He's going forward, but still seems to be very careless, making a lot of mistakes. And Bernard is studying it. I can see in his eyes, he's studying to realize that this guy's slowing down a lot.
Break, step back.
Pavlik thought of throwing a low blow. He didn't do it. Hopkins steps in and rips him with a left hook.
Bernard is having a picnic in right now, and it seems like mentally he's getting recharged now.
He still has the faster hands.
Yep.
He still dominates the center of the ring. He's still ripping Pavlik in combination and putting him on the defensive. Crowd loves it. At least the Hopkins element does. The Youngstown people are in shock.
Well, I think Kelly came in strictly just going for knockouts, and there's no respect for Bernard. And Bernard is fighting maybe the best fight Pavlik fought in his life to some degree. Even the Trinidad fight, he didn't do much until later on. He started off early in this fight and been consistent.
Another brilliant round for Bernard Hopkins.
Sit down. Listen, you gotta bend your fucking knees. What's that? Listen to me, man. You gotta work, Kel. You gotta work. I know, Kel. I know. You gotta double the jab. You have to work, baby. You're getting too close to him. You're letting him get off the punches. You're letting him get off the punches, and then you're too close to do anything. Keep him on a double jab. Keep him at your distance. Don't let this...
His stomach, and then the right hand will be there. I'm telling you, he gonna walk the all right hook.
Okay. Take your time, baby. All night long, your fight.
Just effort. Just take that effort out. I don't want you reaching and jumping. We don't need that. Keep it poised, man. Your hands move. Muscle memory.
Right here. Here you see Bernard just having fun now, a little short right-hand leads, doing things I've never saw him do, because normally he was always a single one-punch guy, never would commit to 2 or 3 punches. His confidence now is sky high now. And I see Kelly's is waning right now at this moment.
Our shots in 7. What a wipeout. Hopkins, 16 out of 28. Pavlik, 3 out of 13. 26-year-old Kelly Pavlik is being taken to the cleaners by the hand speed of a 43-year-old man. What a show by Hopkins, and another good left hook. And a straight right hand across the top. And Hopkins almost made us laugh yesterday when he told us that he was going to knock Kelly Pavlik out, but nobody's laughing now. Pavlik sticks him with the jab a couple times and goes after him with the right hand, but Hopkins rolled away. Pavlik tries to get a right hand to Hopkins' body and then dodges a left hook in return.
Going for a knockout, which Kelly came in to do and was predicting. Now he has to worry about his last 2 rounds that he doesn't possibly get knocked out himself.
Well, the good news for Pavlik is he's starting to land his jab. Not with any big impact. Quick left hook inside lands for Pavlik. He's starting to stick the jab into Hopkins' mouth as Hopkins becomes more and more a stationary target. Still, he has to deal with Hopkins' shoulder roll.
But he's not
his head
making,
fakes.
but still Hopkins can see his punches coming. His punches are too gangly and loose. They're not tight and crisp. And even though Hopkins is taking a rest at certain times, he realizes now that he can actually still stay away from most of Kelly's punches, right? Because he can time him too easy.
And if the official scorecards agree with Harold Letterman's scorecard, Pavlik, it would appear, may need a knockout to win.
I think what he needs is a bailout. Needs the feds to come and rescue him.
Well, at least it won't cost $700 billion.
Bernard hasn't did much this round, but you notice Kelly still could not do anything while Bernard has been taking a rest.
And now, Lindsay Esteves is taking a point away from Pavlik for holding while hitting.
Come on, Bernard, let's go now.
Pavlik didn't see that coming. So just for good measure, as if it isn't enough for Hopkins to have won every round, now he gets an extra point on the scorecards.
His hand speed is too fast, even at 43. I very seldom, at least I've never saw a fighter 17 years disparity in age and still see this fighter fighting this type of a fight.
Yeah.
Most fighters, when you get those gaps like that, the younger guy wins, but only probably, say, with George Foreman. But George had lost every round until he scored that one punch.
But talking about Foreman knocking out
Michael Moore, but this is something totally unexpected, especially with that 17-year age gap.
Get in there and move, boy. You can go by me side.
understand this, man. Ain't nobody ever jabbed with this Joker, man. And they made this Joker a superstar.
Body shots are beautiful. Body shots are beautiful.
He ain't never faced nobody with a jab yet, and you already made him a star. You got to break this down.
With a jab, shoot the right hand, come back with the hook. We got to start throwing volumes, man. We got to start throwing volumes. That's what because Calzaghe won the fight. You got to throw in volumes. Okay? Yeah.
Still punching, man. I don't know.
What's that?
I don't think about punching me.
I can't hear.
I should be out punching him a little bit.
Here you see, which was considered and called a foul, and the point was taken. Kelly lands a punch in the back of the head. And I don't think it was so much just from that one. I think throughout the fight he's been doing that. At least Bernard has been bringing it to the attention to the referee. So it was finally just accumulation of the referee making a decision to just take a point away.
CompuBox averages through the 8th round. Hopkins 13 out of 44. Pavlik 9 out of 38. We said in the first couple of rounds, if Bernard Hopkins could continue to throw more punches than Kelly Pavlik, Pavlik would have a big problem. That problem has continued throughout the fight. The way to beat Bernard Hopkins is to outwork him, outvolume him, and Pavlik hasn't been able to do it. Hopkins is also more accurate, more effective, has landed the solider blows, has beaten Pavlik to the punch, has had better footwork, and didn't lose a point for hitting behind the head. Other than that, Kelly's in pretty good shape.
Step out, both of them, step out.
I think that Bernard is showing faster hands in large part because he can see everything coming and he's willing to let his hands go, which against some of the fighters we've seen him in against Calzaghe and Jermaine Taylor, he wasn't willing to do.
You're right, Larry. And, you know, Kelly is still doing what he's the best he can do, but he's never given up. He's still shooting, and he still has pretty fair punching power. And you never know what can happen as the fight goes on. But right now, it's all Bernard.
So, Emmanuel, after Kelly Pavlik's thrilling and dominant victories over Jose Luis Sotuche and Edison Miranda, and the 2 wins over Jermaine Taylor, and the huge knockout over Gary Lockett, is he being exposed here?
I've always said I love Kelly, but Kelly does not do well with technical fighters. You know, saw him, he's trained at my gym in Cleveland, but he's a good fighter. But Tucci and Miranda, and even the first fight with Jermaine, everybody fought him going straight back, and he just crowded them and wore them out. But when he started putting movement and a little trickery in it.
Who's done that to him before this?
Nobody.
Well,
Nobody.
so you're saying we're just discovering what his weakness is, and he's in with a fighter who knows how to exploit it. There aren't many guys
That's exactly what I'm
out
saying,
there who
Larry.
could do that. And don't forget again, he's fighting at 10 pounds over the weight he's best at, which is not to make an excuse for him. It's just the reality.
And he's bleeding over the left eye, where he now has a cut.
You know,
probably from the product of a Hopkins right hand.
At 160, he's bigger and stronger than most of the fighters he's fighting.
Absolutely, and he's been very physical with those guys, too.
And why really did he take this fight? He couldn't get a title defense with Arthur Abraham because Abraham chose to keep his belt by fighting a European mandatory defense against Raul Marquez of the United States. He chose not to fight Paul Williams because he wasn't sure he'd get credit. And now 1 point is deducted from Hopkins for holding by Benji Esteves. Pavlik didn't think he'd get credit for beating Paul Williams because Williams is a welterweight.
I think they got
even round at best.
greedy.
Because you won the round.
He's 26 years old. There was no reason for them to have to fight Hopkins because even if you beat him, you're not going to look good.
Being there with Jermaine is some nonsense, man. This kid used to taking an ass whooping, so you got to keep chopping. All right? Because he learned how to fight by taking ass whoopings coming up. So that ain't nothing new to him.
Okay. Right here you see Bernard, which just grabbed the clinch with Pavlik, and the referee takes a point from this right here. And I don't think it was definitely nothing. It wasn't even really a strong clinch. I think the referee was just trying to balance out taking a point away from Kelly Pavlik. And he was looking for any excuse to do that so he won't be criticized.
I want to go back to what I was saying. I've thought all along that at 26 years old, there was no reason for him to have to pick this fight because it was more money than fighting some contender. They went for the money.
100%. Harold, how do you have it through 9?
I'll get you 8 rounds to 1, 88, 81. Bernard Hopkins. You know, I got to say something about Benji Esteves. Number one, he should have never taken that point for the rabbit punch because he never won Kelly Pavlik. I mean, you got to win a guy 3 times before you take a point, and that's all there is to it. Then he goes and he takes a point from Hopkins for holding, and he never won Hopkins. I mean, give me a break, guys. I'm sick of watching referees in this fight when I want to watch the fight. Be as it may, Bernard Hopkins still landing the cleaner, harder shots. I thought Kelly Pavlik did do enough to edge him out in round number 9, but be as it may, 8-1, Hopkins based on clean punching.
We're into the last 3 rounds of the fight, and unbeaten Kelly Pavlik, 34-0, 30 knockouts, middleweight champion of the world, is in a desperate situation against 43-year-old Bernard Hopkins, who retired from the sport 2 years ago after beating Antonio Tarver here and then came back and is looking for his 2nd win in 3 fights since that retirement. Jack Lowe, Kelly Pavlik's trainer, trumpeted long and loud before the fight that his fighter would be the first to knock out Bernard Hopkins. Now he needs to be the first to knock out Bernard Hopkins to have a chance to score a win by which, or for which he was favored in betting odds by 4-1.
Pavlik landed a pretty good right hand, and Hopkins walked right through it.
And he returned 2 punches right back. I mean, immediately, right away, before you could even put the scores, they say, in the computer. Bernard returned and counted right back. So, to me, he's winning this round, and I thought he won the last round, too, still. I haven't saw a clear round that Kelly's won. I think he did maybe better in the last round than before, but I don't think he's won a round because he hasn't landed any clean, effective punches to me.
And incidentally, the plan was to attack Hopkins' body. The right hand that Hopkins just landed to the body was probably a better shot than anything Pavlik has landed to Hopkins' ribcage all night long.
Which says a lot about what he's done in this fight.
From the standpoint of youth upending age, it may turn out to be the 2nd most dramatic story in the history of the sport, behind only George Foreman's knockout victory over Michael Moore on November 5, 1994, to gain the legitimate championship of the heavyweight division at age 45.
And remember, he did that with 1 punch, and he had lost every round, but Bernard is winning this fight decisively from the 1st round to the last round.
Which, of course, will make Hopkins, if this holds up, the logical opponent for the winner of Calzaghe-Jones.
Well, if Calzaghe wins that fight, I don't think he's going to fight Hopkins. There's no real need for that. I think what he has to hope is that Jones wins, and that becomes a fight that people have wanted to see for a decade.
Breathe through your mouth, eh? Breathe through your mouth, baby. Come on, Cal. Keep working. Keep working. Come on. Come on. Keep working. Breathe through your mouth. Breathe through your mouth. You all right, man? Yeah, all right. Hey, baby, got to try to get off. This is 11 coming here. This is 11 and 12 coming. All right, baby, we got 2 more rounds. Come on. You got to pick it up. You got to work, man. You got to work. I know. I know, baby. I understand, baby. I understand that. 5 seconds. Let's go.
What you wonder, Emmanuel, is if Hopkins is creating the template for future fighters to try to fight Pavlik.
Yes,
when he gets back to the middleweight division.
Right, and we're just fortunate there's nobody there, but the young group is coming up. He's going to have problems after this fight.
Oh, I don't think it's true there's nobody there. Arthur Abraham is a very good fighter with a brilliant left hook who could very well give Pavlik the same kinds of problems that Hopkins is giving him.
That's one fight I was just thinking about as the division as a whole, but you're right. You know, they have to give Bernard, not just him, but his corner. He's a great experienced staff of people there. He's got Leon Tabbs there, naturally spoken about, Nassim Richardson, John David Jackson, former world champion, one of my fighters, and Danny Davis, his main buddy who stays with him all the time. But that's a lot of brains and craftiness in the corner.
Yes, but Bernard Hopkins said yesterday in talking about his corner, he said, I'm like the president and they're my cabinet. And I totally agree that that's the way that camp is run.
And a lot of experience there. Then you look at Jack Lowe is doing everything he can, and he is really like the force man in that corner. And then Kelly's a very intelligent guy himself, as we have found out.
Oh, it's a good corner. They've done well. They've been outgunned by things they didn't expect tonight. They didn't foresee that Hopkins' speed and precision could so put them on the defensive.
And Hopkins hasn't had to resort to a lot of the con artist stuff he would do, a lot of the chippy stuff on the inside, hitting where the referee couldn't see. He's fought a clean fight in every way.
Very smart, picking his punches. Now he's trying to stay inside the smother character, just take off the clock, so to say, by smother with his short punches. Because he figured Kelly has to have a little loop room, so now he's changing strategies now.
And from the opening bell of round one, Hopkins has fought to win. There hasn't been a moment in the fight in which he's been fighting not to get knocked out or fighting just to stay in the fight. He's been fighting to win all the way.
And that's because Pavlik has never given him a reason not to.
Correct.
You know, as long as it was working, just keep on doing it. Until something comes back that makes you do something else.
All right, break, step back. Not, another warning. Comes.
It's a fight Kelly Pavlik didn't have to take. There's a $3 million guarantee for both fighters, plus a bonus from pay-per-view, but some suspect that the pay-per-view numbers won't provide it. Cold comfort for Pavlik, the money that comes from this.
Come on, don't give up. Come on. All right, man. Okay. All right, listen.
Breathe through your mouth.
Gotta let it go, champ.
Suck it up, baby. Suck
You
it up
gotta
through
let
your
it go,
mouth.
champ.
That's right, baby. Come on.
Don't let this kid make a
You
crooked
don't
ass.
lose your championship. You lose justify. It's all.
Don't let these kids just start taking control.
But stay with your boxing. Stay turning with that small real estate. Maintain your real estate in the center.
Power shots in round 11. Pavlik, 2 of 14. Hopkins, 10 of 24. Story of the fight. And how telling was it that with 3 minutes still to go in the fight, Miguel Diaz said to Kelly Pavlik, you don't lose your championship, you're just losing a fight.
Which is another reason he took the fight. Let's give him that. But that said, boxing has been waiting for some time for the young fighters to rise to the top of the game. Here a young fighter had a chance to do it, and he couldn't pull it off.
This is a damaging blow to the image of the younger generation. Pavlik gets ripped by a right hand, staggered in the center of the ring. Question is, can Pavlik make it to the finish line?
Burnout is very smart. He's held back a little bit there.
Yep.
Saving his energy now.
He rested through some of the middle rounds. He saved some energy for the 12th. He just might be able to close the show. He's still hitting Kelly at will when they stand in the center of the ring.
I think this is a masterpiece fight. I mean, even though the Trinidad fight was great, I just like the fact that he started out at the very beginning and has fought the full 12 rounds in a fight. He was a big underdog, youth, everything. Unbelievable.
Look at the difference in hand speed. This is a landslide for Hopkins. Another $3 million bond purchase coming up for a fighter who's already playing with house money.
Well, Hopkins is the sort of guy, Jim, who would put money in mattresses, and right now that's a pretty good investment strategy with what's going on in this country.
He was at great pains to tell us yesterday, not surprisingly, that he didn't lose a dime in the economic meltdown of the last couple of months. No risk there.
He says he invests conservatively the way he fights, but this is the night he has changed. In fact, he said, what would it like when you hear someone say that Bernard knocks someone out in the first round? He said, I don't do things like that. He said, I fight safety. I take my time.
Pavlik's face is bloodied. And his reputation is in shambles at this moment, as Bernard Hopkins cruises down the stretch of what should turn out to be an easy win.
Yep. He went out of his character for this fight.
He has dismantled the middleweight champion of the world. A guy against whom he was a 4-1 underdog. A guy whose trainer insisted that his fighter would be the first ever to knock Bernard Hopkins out. Knock him out, he barely found him. How many electoral votes did Hopkins gather? Almost all of them.
How you guys at? Real fast and real ready.
Now there's venom, as Hopkins celebrated a little too much. And Bernard comes and stands above us and stares into press row. Hopkins is staring down the media. He is looking at every reporter at ringside, one face after another. He is making his point to the boxing writers and boxing reporters, and he is establishing his eminence once again.
I wish he had the good humor of Ali, who in this moment looked out and said to Sam Cooke, "Did I shake up the world, Sam?"
Bernard is saying, "How do you like me now?"
This is Bernard's version. Round 12, a microcosm of the fight. Hopkins 25 out of 66, Pavlik 7 out of 34. Hopkins 24 out of 43 power shots. A dominating performance for the 43-year-old star. Let's take a look at highlights through the course of the fight. This was the Bernard Hopkins show from start to finish. Sticking Pavlik with straight right hands, ripping him with left hooks. All of this was in round 2, when he staggered Pavlik and looked for a moment as though he might knock him out early. Beating Pavlik to the punch as Kelly kept trying to come in. Constantly, as Pavlik attempted to apply pressure, Bernard with faster hands ripped him with combinations on the inside. Seldom was Kelly Pavlik ever to land a telling blow, either to the body or the head, while Hopkins kept his gloves in Pavlik's face and even showboated from time to time with the ease of his dominance. He just might have won every single round in the fight. Let's go to Michael Buffer for the official particulars on this decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the scorecards. Alan Bernstein scores at 119, 106. Steve Weisfeld, 118, 108. Barbara Perez, 117, 109. As we turn the page to another chapter of a boxing legend from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the two-time champion and future Hall of Famer, Bernard, the Executioner Hopkins.
Thing you need is the slick stuff, baby. I ain't taking away from Pop. You get the slick stuff, you fight like a black fighter. And I'm saying it from a cultural standpoint. You get that slickness together and bend your damn knees like your coach was saying on the tape when I was watching it, you be a bad son of a bitch. All right? Don't let this fight destroy you, man. If I gotta come up there and get your ass out of the gym with a baseball bat, I don't care. I mean that, man. This ain't just victory talk. I'm a real dude. I'm a real dude from the streets. And I ain't ignorant. All limit these guys out. All right? This is your destiny. You're a middleweight. And rule that like I rule it. All right? Seriously, I'm going to come and find your ass. Love you. Respect it, all right? Your family. You all right?
Yes, I'm fine.
Good.
I'm fine.
Remember what I said, man. This is to make you or break you.
What a moment. And here is the list of previous confrontations between fighters in Hopkins' age bracket and young stars like Pavlik. And you can see that in most of these instances, the younger fighter came out on top, although most of us at ringside felt that George Foreman beat Shannon Briggs on the night on which Briggs was given that decision here in Atlantic City. And of course, Foreman's knockout of Moorer in 1994, perhaps the biggest moment of this kind ever in the history of the sport. Eric Morales beat Daniel Zaragoza when there were 18 years difference in their age. Floyd Patterson knocked out Archie Moore when there were 18 years difference in their age. And tonight, Bernard Hopkins, 17 years the senior of Kelly Pavlik, dominates him completely over 12 full rounds in Atlantic City to put his own imprint on boxing history once again. Hopkins is a fighter of many historical distinctions. Longest title reign ever in the middleweight division, where Pavlik is still the champion, and thus the dialogue you heard at the end of the fight in Pavlik's corner. Hopkins landing 64 more power punches, throwing 67 more total punches, excuse me, not power punches, total punches, landing at a higher connect percentage throughout the fight. Pavlik's percentage rose as the fight went on, but he was simply taken out of his game early and never truly got into it again. Power punches completely dominated by Hopkins, landing 93 more, throwing 93 more. No one in his wildest dreams would have predicted that you would see numbers like that at the end of this fight. No one. That's why Hopkins stood and stared down all of us who are purported to be experts here at ringside, because none of us could have foreseen what he did tonight. Larry Merchant in the ring with the legend.
Thank you, Jim. Bernard is doing some business here that has to do with a T-shirt. Always thinking of the future. Bernard, you thought you had a premonition of the fight turning out this way. What did you see in Pavlik that made you think this could happen?
Well, styles make fights, Larry. First, I'd like to say hello to my friends at Miami at the Blue and Green Diamond. Also, Obama, I know you're watching, you and your wife. Next president, thank you, man. And everybody of Germantown and North Philly, love y'all, man. Philly in the house. The Phillies gonna win the championship. Larry, I felt good. I told Kelly Pavlik he's a great fighter. I said it before and I said it after. I'll tell you, no one's gonna beat this guy at 60. And, you know, I knew that my style and my quickness is underrated, not overrated, but underrated. And I was just looking to lead and then counter and then lead and counter, mix it up a little bit. And I sort of like, I confused him early on, but I mean, he is a heavy-handed puncher. I mean, I felt a lot of his blows. I never got hurt by none of them, but I know to not get hit flush with him because he's like a heavy-handed puncher.
Where did the energy come?
Affliction, baby, affliction.
Where did the energy come to sustain this? After the last fight, when you looked so fatigued in the late rounds, where did the energy come to sustain this for 12 rounds?
90% of the media, according to Richard Schaefer, had a poll that I would lose the fight, and a lot believed that I would get knocked out. You know, Larry, you mentioned in your early telecast leading up to this fight, wouldn't move Bernard Hopkins. Yes, I got talent, but it's the naysayers, Larry, and I need them. If I don't have them, Larry, I won't fight to my best ability. I don't know, it sounds crazy, but I need to have people against me. And not that I want it, but as long as I'm in this business of the hurt business, I gotta have it, Larry. Sometimes I pick fights, even with you.
Were you trying to make even a bigger statement by stopping him in the late rounds?
Yes, because, you know, Larry, I've been playing it safe because of my age, and I feel if I can win it in a driver's seat with the seatbelt on, then why not? But I know what the fans want. They pay me a lot of money to risk myself. You've been on me for years, and justifiably so. I want to pick it up. If I'm going to continue to box again, then another fight or another year, I haven't decided yet till I talk to Oscar and Richard, but you're going to see me stepping it up. I promise you, Larry, whoever I fight now, I'm going for the knockout. I don't know what round, but I'm going to try at the end, and I want to display it with tonight, and I think I came close to doing it, but he's tough. And I give Kelly Pavlik all the credit. His people from Youngstown, they got a great champion, and they shouldn't be upset at him. They should be proud of him.
Does all this mean that you're rooting for Roy Jones to beat Calzaghe next month, setting up a fight that's been a decade overdue?
Well, before you leave this earth, and before Jim Lampley leave this earth and Emmanuel Stewart, that will be a dream fight for me. I will fight Roy. I will go to England. I will go to England to fight the Welsmen, especially if their dollar is a little higher than ours in America. I will go to England. So either one of those guys, Larry, I'm willing to fight. But Roy would be huge. Don't everybody want to see me beat Roy Jones?
Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you, Larry. Thank HBO, Kerry Davis, Ross, and you.
Thank you. And congratulations on a great fight. Kelly, it looked like you were having problems with him in the first round, and it never changed. You tell us why you couldn't deal with this old guy.
First of all, he didn't fight like he was old. He had the movement and everything else, but you know, I just couldn't get off tonight. I mean, with his movement, just I don't know, like I throw my jabs, my right hands, something was not ticking. I'm not making no excuses. The guy fought good and he gave me a lesson.
Could it have been the weight? There are observers in this game who thought that once you started putting on weight, you would not be as quick or as strong over bigger fighters.
I don't know. That could be a possibility, Larry. I really don't know. I was gonna say I didn't feel like me in there tonight. I felt like a sub-novice fighter in there tonight. Just everything. I mean, I couldn't even move. When I tried to turn southpaw and flick my right hand out, 99% of fighters that works on tonight, I just couldn't get it going.
What was the lesson you learned that you just referred to?
Yeah, I can't get myself in shape. I mean, I wasn't a bit winded at all throughout that fight. I mean, not one time was I tired. Just a lesson of, you know, go back to the drawing board and work on fighters that have lateral movement or something, you know.
Can you change your style, and why should you? Or is this just a unique circumstance against a special fighter?
I think it was a unique circumstance against a special fighter. And another thing is, you know, we spar guys that are real fast and slick like that. And I don't have that problem. I don't know what it was tonight, Larry. Like I'm saying, it's not an excuse. I mean, guy went out there and he did what he had to do, but it just wasn't me. I couldn't get off the way I want to.
Was there too much focus on your having to look good or dominate him or even knock him out?
I don't know. I think it was looking good. I think I was worried about that, but you know, as the fight goes on, you throw it out the window. Then when you're behind on the scorecards, you just start going for the rounds, you know. So that was tossed out the window after the third round. We just tried going in there and keeping the punch rate up, but like I said, I couldn't even get off. I mean, even on the inside when we were clenched, I didn't have the energy to punch.
Will you be happy to return to 160?
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely going back to 160. We have the titles there. But, you know, I ain't done it to higher weight classes either. So, you know, that one, you guys know how I am and how I fight. You know, as one loss in 35 fights against a lot of great fighters. I mean, who knows what the situation was, but that's only one loss. You know, a lot of these great time fighters have 5 or 6 losses.
What do you think the reaction in Youngstown will be, where you've had such a great response and so much affection?
I don't know. I mean, it's one loss. You know, we come back, we still got the titles. We'll see, though. You know, I have faith in them. They're great fans, best fans in the world, and, you know, we'll be back. This ain't nothing.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Jim?
All right, Kelly Pavlik seemingly bewildered. You wouldn't blame him one bit if his mind is a little bit blown by the experience that he had in there tonight. My mind is blown, Emmanuel Stewart. I could never have envisioned that I would see Bernard Hopkins at age 43 completely dominate a dynamic young fighter, or at least a guy who had looked like a dynamic young fighter that way up to that point. And what are your thoughts?
I'm just glad I was a part of this historical night. The performance by Bernard was just still, I'm totally bewildered because he's never fought that way to me. Even when he was in his prime coming up, the fight so early and so aggressive, he did everything perfect tonight. I know he's got other fight he's talking about. I know that's going to happen, but he could never do anything bigger than he did tonight. If he was stopped tonight, it would be one of the greatest things he could do. I know it's not going to happen, but he's on top of the hill right now. Nothing get any better than this.
Do you think it was just a case of a bad matchup between Pavlik's attributes and Hopkins' attributes, or wasn't that a much better Bernard Hopkins than we've seen in the last few years?
Like most answers, not just anyone, it was accumulation of things. First of all, Kelly Pavlik has always had problems with technical fighters. Fortunately, like Larry said, it hasn't been in any division, so he did what he's supposed to. But smart, crafty fighters that made him use his footwork was always been a problem. And also, I think the fact that Bernard was a much better fighter than was anybody expected. And then also Kelly Pavlik's camp really didn't respect Bernard enough. They were so focused on, since Kelly's like on a roll now, he's just steamrolling everybody. It's just what round we would knock him out in. It's not even a question about it, whether he can beat Bernard, and that was a major mistake.
Pavlik seems unsure as to what is the lesson that he should have learned from this. I personally might suggest the lesson is don't go up 10 pounds in weight to take a fight that you don't need to take for much of any reason other than money. Larry?
Well, it depends on, I saw it as greed. I talked about the greed that you're just referring to, but Bernard Hopkins is greedy too. You know, he's greedy for more. He wants more victory, more fame, more adulation, more confirmation of just what he has achieved in the game. And of course, the money ain't bad either. He just bought a 17,000 square foot home on 5 acres. So he had the greed that he had turned out to be good. The greed that Kelly Pavlik and his advisors had, which was to try to put an old scalp on their belts, turned out to be very bad.
Hopkins bought that home in foreclosure, of course, and his neighbor is Joe Biden. He sees himself as a president. He needs a vice president as a neighbor to live nearby. Here's the great news for all of us, frankly. This proves once again, as we've seen in so many sports, that the age limits are constantly expanding. 40 is the new 50, or however you want to put it. We shouldn't be as shocked as we might have been 8-10 years ago to see a 43-year-old guy do what Bernard Hopkins did tonight with modern conditioning, modern nutrition, the kinds of good habits and the gym rat mentality that Hopkins has brought to his whole career. He's not the only one who's capable of producing far beyond the limit at which we think it's possible. George Foreman proved that first. Hopkins proved it again tonight. Thanks very much for being with us on this live show from Atlantic City with historic outcome. Pavlik versus Hopkins has been brought to you by Caesars Atlantic City, Corona Beer, Corona La Cerveza Más Fina, Affliction, and by HBO Pay-Per-View, the best in pay-per-view entertainment, brought to you by HBO. We'd like to thank the following internet partners. And so for our entire crew, I'm Jim Lampley saying good night from Atlantic City.